Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, consciousness is like a sponge, and all the experience we have gone through in our lives are like the wet paints. So, whatever we have gone through has already been absorbed in our consciousness. All experience that we have gone through leaves the residue as an idea as a joy, or idea as a pain, or likes and dislike. Experience leaves the different colors in us. And the more we repeat the yes part, the joy part, the positive experience, we are inviting more colors in us, and we are hardening the colors on the consciousness. And that's how, the simple idea becomes an ingrained belief, a preference in life. And because of the preference, because of the one-way approach, denying the other, has created this suffering, this pain, the fear in everyone's life. And the spiritual journey is about taking out all the colors, or dissolving the colors, so that we can see the background that supports the color, all colors. So that's the journey to be free. So we can anchor in, the truth of who we are. Now, when we build the interest in spirituality to become free from our fear, free from the mind that is creating conflicts in our lives, we associate it with spirituality. And the spiritual side offers the approach how to dissolve the colorings. Dissolving the colorings means dissolving the ego. So, we hear different kind of approaches to dissolve the ego. There are techniques, in the spiritual environment, and we apply the techniques, apply the approach, trying to dissolve, and we were able to dissolve the ego, to minimize the ego to some extent, but not all the way through the approach or techniques. We don't even realize that the technique, the approach itself is another coloring in the consciousness. So we were able to minimize from the approach, and we keep doing the same thing, but we're not able to dissolve all colorings because of not recognizing that the idea that we accept to dissolve, or trying to dissolve all the ego or colorings itself, is another color on the consciousness. And if you don't realize that, then the movement that we're trying to dissolve the colors, the approach itself becomes another ingrained preference. For example, in meditation, people are using techniques, right? You focus on the technique to dissolve the mind. The technique will help you to minimize the mind. You are dissolving the, ideas. You're dissolving the complexity of the mind towards the simplicity, simple mind. Now notice, you're minimizing, but the true freedom is about keeping the canvas empty. Your idea, the approach, the spiritual identity itself is a dot on the consciousness. That dot gotta go as well. The approach, the spiritual identity must be dissolved as well. If you can let go the approach, the identification, that itself is an ego. And the more you prolong that practice, basically we are hardening that ego movement. By the way, spiritual idea or spiritual identification, spiritual approach is the hardest identification, hardest layer, the hardest coloring in the person to let go. When you are being part of the spiritual journey, you are able to let go a lot of stuff, isn't it? With force or with understanding, people are able to let go. But that final identification, the final layer on the consciousness, remains. So that's why, the whole journey fails to see the truth. Basically, people fail to see the plain sight truth. To see the plain sight truth, that final dot, the final identification must go as well. That final identification is the hardest layer, isn't it? The hardest layer, because it becomes hard because that identification help you dissolve a lot of stuff in your life. And in the process itself, ingrains in the person. That's why, people have a hard time to dissolve the meditation, dissolve the spirituality, to just dissolve this stuff as a spiritual identification. There's a saying, all approaches are like the vehicle to get to you to the door. To open the door, you have to get out of the vehicle. So all the spiritual identification, all the approaches that we are maintaining is the vehicle. So you got to get out of the vehicle, get off the vehicle to open the door, to cross, to go to the other side of the door. And especially when the any spiritual aspect that is working, the ego self, makes you cling onto that. Especially, it works in the relative functioning world. But when it comes to absolute freedom, all layers must go. That's the only way. There's no other way. You cannot hold the layer and see the truth. It's impossible. The journey is about, again, detaching from everything. Detaching all ideas from the mind. That means taking out all the colors through investigating the mind, investigating the experience. And that's the way to do it. So this is where, we have to be part of the inquiry practice. One must, turn the awareness back to oneself, then gotta dismantle the mind by tracing the mind backward to its root and eliminating the root altogether to see the plain sight truth, including asking, who am I? So, to open the gate and to cross to the other side, self-inquiry is the part. So, all the approaches, all the techniques you have used is to come to the gate, to open the gate. Now you must investigate on your mind. And from that, the gate will open. We see the plain sight truth. But there must, one must be thorough in investigating the mind. You cannot cling on to any idea. You cannot hold on to your mental construct, your emotional construct, your psychological construct. You can't hold on to anything. So, investigating is is a way to be thorough in the spiritual path, and thoroughness is the way to see the truth. Okay? So, all coloring things must go. That means all the ideas must go from the mind, to go to no mind, to rest in consciousness. Okay, I hope this video makes sense to some extent. I hope it's helping. And I always encourage you to be part of the self-inquiry practice. That's the straightforward spirituality. And I hope you're seeing the value, seeing the result, and your result is inspiring you to stay on the path and keep going, right? If you have been following. If you're new, give it a go and see what happens. From my side, self-inquiry approach is the way. It's the way to dissolve all minds, all ideas from the mind. Okay, yeah, that's all for now. That's all for today. Take care for now. See you in the next video. Bye.